This is Linda. She has a remote team in 14 countries. Before, she would get bogged down with a ton of different apps and payment methods to manage her employees. Then, she found remoteteam.com, an all-in-one platform where you can pay your remote employees and contractors and find all the apps you need to run a successful remote company.
Hey everybody, this is Danny Page, the MC and host for Running Remote Online. It's amazing because we've had hours of content at this point, but yet it feels like we're really just getting started. So earlier today, we spoke to Sahin Boydas, the CEO at remoteteam.com. You just heard from Remote Team there as well. Later, we'll talk about remote work in corporations. We had a couple really interesting HR discussions earlier. I hope you enjoyed the roundtables as well with our partners, Remo. Those were fascinating. But now we're going to take a step toward design and collaboration and talk to some of the absolute brightest minds in the space from companies like Canva, Trello, Mural, and of course, Balsamiq. We're really excited for this panel. Stu Smith, product design manager at Trello and at Atlassian and Jira. I don't know if that falls within your, but I mean, you guys have become a conglomeration of useful tools for remote teams. Stu, thanks so much. We're super excited to have you lead this panel.
Yeah, stoked to be here. It's been a wild year of the world going remote, and excited to chat through. I'm personally just a little bit of a fanboy of each of the companies represented here, so excited to pick their brains.
I'll let you guys take it away. I might jump back in for some questions later. It's all you, Stu.
All right, thanks, Danny. Love the shirt, by the way. Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to go cameras on for the panelists, and we're going to do a quick round of introductions. And Leon, how about you kick us off?
All right. So I'm Leon Barnard. I work at Balsamiq. I've been there for about 8 years. Balsamiq, for its entire history, has been what we refer to as remote first. So there's a small office in Italy, but most people don't go in, and the rest of the employees are fully remote. We're a fairly small company still, even though we're over 10 years old, about 33 people now. And yeah, so the company has been remote for 10 or 12 years, and I've been with the company for 8 years.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks, Leon. Excited you're here, man. Laïla, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, Stu and everyone else. So I'm Laïla, and I'm working at Mural as head of culture and collaboration. I've been at Mural for 2.5 years, but I used to be a UX designer, and I've been using Mural for the past 6 years at least. Mural has been around for 8 years. It didn't start out as a distributed company. It started in Buenos Aires in Argentina. We have a big office there. We have an office in San Francisco, but we started becoming hybrid quite a while back. So we do have a remote first approach to work, but we're really like a hybrid company.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of similar to us on the Trello side. Some offices, some not. But yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for being here. And then Andrew, let's hear from you, man.
Hi, yeah, I'm Andrew Greene. I'm the head of design at Canva. We're an online graphic design tool based in Sydney, Australia. So it's a little bit late here at the moment, just after midnight. So excuse if I'm a little bit tired, but that's all right. We're actually really proud of our office culture, and so going remote was a bit of a new thing for us, and so that's probably something we'll chat about today. But yeah, so I've been at Canva for about two years across the UX teams, brand design, and template design.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, Danny introed me, but I'm with Trello and Atlassian. And to give some background, so Trello has been a sort of remote hybrid thing, similar to how you're describing Mural, Laïla. So for about the last 10 years, we had an office in New York, but then some of the team has been remote, like 80% of the team, so majority. But then when we were acquired by Atlassian, that was very much a office first culture, and has only really recently changed. And so there's been some announcements recently that we're going to a full hybrid approach with the whole staff, which is a pretty wild change for us culturally. So I think a lot of our conversation today will been talking about this change that's happening in the world. I'm sure that's been a theme in other sessions today. But then, yeah, get specifically into the design space. I'm curious, Andrew, like you're on a team that has really had to make this change in rapid form this year. So you were mentioning super strong office culture. Kind of curious what your biggest adjustments are that you've had to make this year, and like specific to the design team, but then the rest of the company as well.
Yeah, it was so just to be just sort of paint a bit of a picture. We have about 450 people in the Sydney office in Australia. We do have a large office in Manila as well in the Philippines, about 300 people there, and then an office in China. We have people around the globe as well, doing a lot of localization efforts, a lot of like local design efforts as well with our templates. So we've always felt like a global company, even though we're based in Sydney. But the Sydney office definitely had a strong vibe, and the Manila and China offices do as well. Funnily enough, when we announced that we were going to work remotely was right in the middle of a hackathon, like a company-wide hackathon. So it was a 3-day event, first day, second day, and then like the third day when we had to sort of present everything that we've been working on was actually like everyone's got to work from home. And it was a really interesting way to kick it off, because no one really knew it was going to happen. It was just sort of a decision we'd made on the spot. And everyone had to present all of the work that they'd been doing over the last 3 days, like through Zoom. And there's a lot of very quick learning just even then in that one day, which was quite interesting. You could almost sense like the culture changing straight away, because we had to like present all the stuff that we've been doing. So a lot of the teams we had to organize hundreds of people to present very quickly in a 24-hour space. So it was sort of a very quick turnaround for us. And that kind of set the tone, I think, for the rest of the period. And I guess for us, there was always a sense of like making sure we're communicating like, this is actually a long-term thing. This isn't just like 6 weeks. Australia's had a pretty good record, especially in New South Wales where we are, around containing the virus. So there wasn't, huge lockdowns. So we just need to make sure that people felt like very clear on, this is going to be a long-term thing. And so we've always been clear on that. From the design team point of view, the biggest change, I think, the biggest fear I guess I had coming in was we had a pretty strong critique culture within the team. So we were very strong on meeting up quite frequently. And it was always, in person in the same room, critiquing each other's work. A lot of sort of face-to-face communication, and I'd kind of built that up a little bit in the team and sort of rested some laurels on that as like how I wanted to build the culture of the design team. And so I was quite, concerned about how that would actually like end up, like what will sort of, how this sort of translates. So it ended up that, we set up like a Slack channel, design critique channel, so people could do things asynchronously. And what I noticed was that people were actually like using that a lot more, and there was a lot more asynchronous critique going on in the Slack channel at first, which was, sort of, it started off, it felt like a bit of an experiment, to be honest, like how is this going to all work? But yeah, that's sort of how it started out. Yeah,
that's awesome. On the critique side, I think it might be good to dig into this with the group. It's a thing for me that I've experienced as a remote leader, that really, like, I kind of come from this place where I feel like we've been effective at remote because we have these moments to get together at offsites and like get face-to-face time, which maybe, you've got relationships built up across the design team where there's that trust built up to be able to like deliver really like tough feedback or pointed feedback. But I'm curious from the group, how do you foster those relationships that can sort of have affordance to be really just direct with your feedback and actually have radical candor when you're critiquing. Nobody's work gets better by being ultra polite about things. So curious to put that to the rest of the panel. Or Andrew. Okay, man.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you're going to call on people. I'm fortunate in that a lot of our employees have been here for a long time. So a lot of it is just going off of previously established kind of interactions and relationships. One thing we missed a lot this year is not having our annual retreat in person, because that is something that we've always done. We try to get everybody together in person for a week, and we're basically kind of live together for a week, because that social connection has to kind of feed us for the entire year. So we've always kind of relied on that. And usually, after 9 months or so of not seeing each other, you start to feel a little disconnected. And then just being together for one intense week kind of allows you to forge those relationships and maybe have some of those difficult conversations, or just really kind of connect with people and see what maybe, kind of fill in some of those gaps. So we did try to do a virtual retreat this year, but it's been a little bit tougher. One thing we try to do is we ask people how they prefer to receive feedback. So some people have a hard time kind of face to face, and they want to process it. So some people prefer to get feedback in writing. Some people prefer, they're very much like, tell it to my face, give it to me straight. So we try to encourage people to talk about how they like to receive feedback. But there's definitely something nice about being all in a group together and just kind of getting a feel for people. So we definitely missed having our in-person retreat this year.
And Laïla, how does that play out at Mural? It's funny asking that question from my perspective, because we do the majority of our critique inside of Mural at Trello. So it's like, yeah, your product is the thing that allows us to do the thing. So it's awesome.
So we do definitely use our product to critique our products, which is a great way to stay very meta. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Mural is a digital platform that allows teams to visually collaborate. So you can kind of imagine it like an online whiteboard. And we definitely visualize a lot. So we're heavy on the visualization side of things. When it comes to giving feedback though, in terms of, so for the design team, I know that they meet weekly, and they also have, their own processes. As a company, across teams, there's different processes that are giving feedback. But one thing that I've tried to do more of is do also like when it comes to individual feedback, to do it in teams and give each other like there's a framework that I'm using where we each give each other constructive feedback in front of the whole team, more on how we can improve the way that we collaborate together. And that's been really great. I've also tried to do some kind of like focus groups. We send out engagement surveys as well. So first we'll send out the survey, then we try to take a group of those people in those specific teams and find out, how we can improve the company on a whole.
Yeah, it's awesome. Leon, I wanted to go back to something you were talking about of sort of like the remote offsite you did. How did that go? And just curious of like how that compared to previous years.
It went pretty well. We tried to make it fun and keep it light, and it was scheduled for May, so we did keep it then. And I think psychologically that was a more difficult time and place than where we are now. So it was kind of, we really tried to make it fun and social and not make it at all about really work stuff or taking things too seriously, because a lot of people were still having a difficulty kind of like engaging with work at the time in early May. So we did some fun things. We did a little dance party. Me and a colleague are like part-time DJs, so we tried DJing live over Zoom, and other people were dancing. And then there was a cocktail making thing. We had a little session where we did a little version of Family Feud. But to be honest, I think the biggest difficulty was the time zones, because half of our team is in the US, half is in Europe. So in the in-person one, people will either fly over here or out there, and then you can do things all at the same time. But there were too many events that were either, after dinner for one group or very early in the morning for the other, where you're just not really as in it. So we had some separate like US and Europe get-togethers, but it wasn't the same as having everybody all together at once. So we did what we could, and there were definitely some moments, but it was, usually it was only about an hour or two of retreat a day. And I think that was maybe the biggest difference, is not just spending that whole day together.
Yeah. We tend to, when we have discipline specific offsites, like our design offsite last year was in New York. And we're like planning one for October of this year. And I think one of the biggest adjustments we've had to make is when we do those discipline specific offsites, they tend to be really like growth oriented. And like, for example, last year was all about growing business acumen as designers, which like, if you were to plan that offsite for this fall, feels like a really maybe like tone deaf way to approach a time together. It's not balanced out with those fun things that you're talking about. Like we typically have a yearly retreat called Trello Together, where we all like go play in a lake and ride jet skis and, dance and stuff. But really it's like, I feel like as a leader, I'm much more inclined to give everybody a day off than challenge them on getting better at their business acumen this year. Cool. I have a thought back on the collaboration topic. The one thing that I feel, even though I was remote before all this, is honestly the Zoom fatigue. And I was mentioning this when Leon and Andrew and I got to connect briefly before this, that one of the big challenges is, you're on Zoom calls for, 6-8 hours a day, whatever it ends up being. And then your friends want to hang out on Zoom. And it's like, cool, that's about the last thing I want to do. So I'm kind of curious how y'all are managing this. Maybe Andrew can talk about sort of managing this transition and having to adapt to a whole new way of working. Because I know a lot of things come with that, of like potential like just burnout from that, or just like general fatigue. So maybe you can talk to that.
Yeah, look, definitely. I was lucky enough before working in this role, like being in a remote office. So I did a lot of like video calls, and so I kind of saw it coming a little bit. And so one of the things that we've done is a lot of our one-on-one, at least the one-on-one calls that you might have if you're like a coach with a coachee, are happening like, let's just go for a walk. And so obviously if the weather's good, you can both sort of arrange a little bit up front that you'll both like just pop the headphones on and like you'll walk in your neighborhood. If you're like in Sydney, we're lucky enough that we can like walk around. We're not too restricted to do that, as long as you say socially distanced and all that. And that actually is helped kind of break it up. So if you do have those like one-to-one conversations, and you have like your agenda there on your phone, you can kind of like do that, like walking. That's one thing. The other thing that we did, we've been doing like meetless design weeks, so like, or Zoomless design weeks, I guess, where one week every month, and for the last couple of months, we've just do like no design meetings. So that means no design all hands, no design salons, critiques for 1 week, to just give everyone a break from, at least from our specialty or our discipline, which I've been getting some good feedback on, actually. Like, it's just like, and by the end of it, you sort of miss everyone, and you, like, the next week, everyone's like really more engaged in that Zoom call anyway. And I guess just kind of like Zoom's one thing, and the other one is also just like notifications have also played really wreaked havoc, I think, with designers, being constantly, before it was, being pinged, at Canva, you'd be like one product designer to maybe 8 engineers and one product manager. During the day, you'd be getting like some sort of social cues around like when someone can interrupt you into your work. But when you're remote, like, people weren't getting those. And so they're just constantly getting barrages of notifications. I think Zoom fatigue is one thing, but at least that's planned. The other thing I'm trying to help people in the designers manage is like notification hell, just getting constantly notified. And so I've noticed actually in the last 2 weeks, like a lot of our designers have uninstalled like Slack from their phones. to just create that barrier, just create like some sort of moat around your work so that you can get that deep work in, which is like Zoom is like a necessary evil, but the consequence of that is that people aren't thinking deeply in their design work as they probably would have. And that's something I think that I've also been really, really stressed about. Like how are people working deeply at the moment if they're constantly having notifications and constantly on Zoom? So that's, I'm interested in the other panelists on how they're sort of managing that.
Yeah, I think from Laïla and Leon, kind of that topic, but then also there's this whole other thing that's been on my mind of like, again, like though we've been remote for a while, there's like new headwinds that people are dealing with. And I've felt the unique, what is the word? It's just, I've felt uniquely unaware of what other people are dealing with now in a remote, like COVID world. Kind of goes back to that, like how do you deliver like tough feedback when you don't have the full context of like someone's experience. So I'm kind of curious from maybe start with Laïla, like what are those headwinds that your team is up against that wouldn't be there in normal times?
Well, you mentioned, we're talking about COVID-19 and the lockdowns. A huge part of our team is based in Argentina, and the lockdown there has been very different than the rest of the world. So we're spread across Europe, US, and Argentina. Argentina is still in lockdown. They've been in lockdown for 4 months, like very strict lockdown. Like they couldn't even for months like leave their house to even go shopping. They had to order food delivery. So from a psychological point of view, they're obviously suffering in a very different way. And just having the rest of the company, being aware of that and having empathy for that and understanding like there's just so much going on. Right. And like Europe is like coming out of lockdowns with like all these things, like every situation is different. So that's been something that we couldn't have really expected. On the other hand, though, I think it's been interesting to be in this situation that forced us this way, because we were always saying we need to improve the way we work remotely and be more inclusive towards people who are fully remote, like myself. But now everybody's in that situation. So like it's actually helped, I think, make everyone understand this is what it feels like to be fully remote. So I'm confident that when we do open the offices again, people are going to, especially the Argentinians, will like keep that in mind, because they're like, oh yeah, we were so isolated for months. So yeah, that's one example.
Yeah, that's great. I think I felt that too, especially as like I mentioned, like Trello's been remote, but Atlassian hasn't. And I think every remote employee has had that experience where you like call in to a co-located team and you're like the floating head on the wall, and they're all kind of sitting around the conference table, and you like can't really hear the whispers between them. And it's just like a very weird and isolating experience. But now, like you're saying, we're all in the same experience now and get it. So,
one of the things that we did just on that topic that was kind of new for us as if you are like transferring from office first to remote first, was we actually did open the office recently because we were able to in New South Wales, and we had about 40% of the Sydney team come back to the office, but we had these rules that we had to put in place. So even if you're in a meeting and everyone is actually in Sydney, everyone needs to be on Zoom. Like everyone needs to have like a tile. It was kind of like the thing. Everyone has a tile. Like you can't be like 5 people in a meeting room and then like one person there, which actually was a bit of a mind, like kind of, it really did sort of shake people up. Like, okay, like this is what real remote is like. You need to give people a tile on that screen. Even if you're just over there. And so we had a lot of occasions where like people were like one person in each meeting room on a floor, but they're all in the same meeting. But that's just what we had to enforce. And so what our people team, like we have a vibe team at Canva that look after like the vibe of Canva, like how we're all working together. And they were really strong on that one, like in company, all hands going, if you're going to come back in and you're in a meeting, you still need to dial in on your own. This is not about like congregating in rooms again. That's still not happening, which was like a bit of a change for us.
Yeah, I think you'll start to see those like wall-mounted webcams ripped out of offices when they start to open back up. It's been a thing for us. When we have our town halls, we go through sort of like Trello's core values and principles, and one of those is always assume remote. And so even though we have offices, it's the same thing. We're like, nope, everybody gets equal footing. Yeah. Leon, you're a remote veteran. Are there any of those sort of principles that Balsamiq has adopted to really be effective in this, just in general remote environment?
Yeah, I would say we're almost coming from the opposite. We are definitely fully remote first. So for our all hands, even if people are in the office, they're all dialed in from their own computers. We have very few meetings. So I'm used to having a good 6 hours a day of, deep work time. We try to have as few meetings as possible. And I think these are the kinds of things that a lot of fully remote companies have really embraced. And so our struggle has been more, how do we connect with people when we're used to working very independently, and we try to decouple a lot of things. So we've been struggling to try to feel more connected because we're not used to having meetings.
Yeah, the lack of connection is like the biggest thing. It's the theme of the year, it feels like. Let's see. So getting back to sort of like the meat of design on this panel, designers are the people that love to like dork out on their tooling. I mentioned that I love Mural. Curious, like if there's any tools that the teams are currently using that are specifically valuable for remote collaboration. So I'll throw that to anyone on the panel that wants to speak up.
For us, I'll go. But for us, we moved to Figma before this all went down, and that's been great to have like everyone together under one platform. We've tooling wise, it sounds funny, but a lot of our and I know Stu, you work at Atlassian, but a lot of our designers weren't really into using Confluence as much as the rest of the organization, even though it was widely adopted. And so it was interesting seeing how our designers now have like really adopted Confluence, like as a place to write a thing that must, a truth or a one pager or something like a strat doc or something like that. And so I've found that like those communication tools have been hugely adopted by designers now, like those sorts of tools that maybe were sort of thought, PMs use those tools. Or engineers, no more. The other thing that, and I guess it's sort of similar to the Mural guys, we've been dogfooding a lot, like our own tools. So using Canva itself to do more collaboration. It's been a real, shot in the arm for our like roadmap for like collaboration tools. And so things like comments, which we had implemented but weren't really polished, became really polished very quickly when everyone started using, Canva to actually write their comments and figure out how to use them. So I think everyone on this panel like operates in a product that is about collaboration. I think for us, Canva, we were probably more about the designing for everybody and being a design tool for everybody, but not so much the collaboration side. And so we've definitely felt that we've had to move very quickly because we've had to use our own tool to do it. So that's actually been pretty cool. The other thing I was going to say is that just not quite tooling, but just modes, like asynchronous has just been everyone's working asynchronously now. So any tool that's asynchronous is what we're using. And I think that I don't know, Leon, if that's the key to having less meetings is just working more and more asynchronously, is sort of something we're working towards as well. So any tool that can kind of give us asynchronous collaboration, everyone's on the same page, has been priceless.
Yeah, I know a lot of fully remote companies are really pushing for asynchronous. We have kind of a mix of that. I mean, we do group people geographically. So almost all of our development team is in Europe because sometimes it is nice to be working in the same time zone. A lot of our, the people I work with, most of them are in the US with the exception of one or two people. So we're not fully as in on asynchronous as maybe some other remote companies are, but definitely having tools that support that. And we definitely rely a lot on notifications and watching pages in Confluence. And, a big focus in Balsamic has been on the real-time collaboration and comments and chat and notifications and things like that. So yeah, having those capabilities in your tools is really important.
Yeah. Laïla,
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to share something, or I don't know how much time we have left. So
we're just about 10 minutes. So yeah, we can maybe do some talk on that, and then maybe another question. So.
Sure. I was just going to add, aside from Confluence, which we are starting to use as well, Asana has been a tool that we've been using for task management. And at first it was harder to get people on board, but now it's started to really spread across the entire team, design teams as well as other teams. So it's just something that we want to leverage a lot more to help us also with ownership, because Confluence has been great to have the processes there and everything, but it's also okay, we come up with all these new ways of working together and collaborating as we're scaling the team remotely, but then who is actually, owning this, and how can we ensure accountability? So that's, I think, the next step also.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely looked at Asana a bunch. There's lots of cool stuff happening in these, sort of work management tools. So obviously that I really study up the most on as a group, coming from where I'm from. Andrew, I was going to do this. It's I guess a product plug, but one thing that your team might find interesting is we just announced a partnership with Figma, where you're going to be able to embed your Figma pages in the Confluence docs, which is kind of one of those things that just came up sort of in response to the world going remote, which I just think that was super rad. But,
definitely, that's I saw that actually. Oh, there was rumors, yeah.
Yeah, there's a hacky right now, but yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's see. I'm gonna scan my list.
I just realized I forgot one tool, which kind of is a very simple tool as well that I've seen us use more of as designers than before, which are GIF making tools. So ScreenFlow and Gizamo, these small companies that are really good at one thing, which is making screen UI flows, and our licensing for ScreenFlow just went everyone wanted it up, just to kind of put together really compelling walkthroughs of their prototypes, to be able to sell it, to our stakeholders and our founders. Here's a cool feature idea I've got. And so I've actually found that those tools, those really kind of almost animation storytelling UI tools, are actually becoming more and more used as well, even by people that might not identify as UI more or visual designers, but even UX designers are just putting more thought into those flows and how they actually show them. And it's ScreenFlow has been one for sure, that I've seen a lot more of our designers use, because you can just put it all together and then just post it on Slack as a GIF, and it instantly gets a lot of attention and a lot of buy-in, which I think has been a good one as well.
Yeah, it comes to mind too. Another one kind of in that vein that we've really latched onto this year is Loom, where we can do, if people aren't familiar with it, you can do a screen capture, but then you have yourself floating as an avatar in the corner. But it's been great for those async moments where it may be late in somebody's time zone, and also not really necessary to grab a full-on meeting to walk somebody through something, but it's great to put together a 5-minute just quick and dirty run through and get your point across.
I've got a question for everyone here. What is the secret for non-design oriented executives in the company to better communicate with designers in a company? Because I think for non-design leadership, we're hey, just do it. It's going to be perfect, right? And that's just really poor communication, especially remotely, right? How can non-design leadership better communicate with design?
This is really hard for me not to give too much of a plug, but I think Balsamic
Go
is
ahead
really,
and plug, okay?
Balsamic is really optimized for non-designers, and actually our biggest audience is product managers. So I think that low fidelity wireframes in a very simple tool that's not intimidating are really good. I think it is good for product managers to communicate visually if possible. Actually, one of our biggest selling products is our Balsamic plugin for Confluence. So I think simple sketching kind of wireframey tools are good for PMs who might feel intimidated by something a little bit more complex. But yeah, that's the end of my plug.
Any other thoughts? Laïla, you got one?
Yeah, I was gonna say Mural.
Okay, another plug. No.
Is that not original enough?
Right.
No. No, I do. I mean, Mural came from the need for. So the founders were actually building a game, and they were sharing it with clients in the US, and they were going back and forth between how to share feedback. And the whole idea was like, well, maybe we need something like a board where we can comment on our project. And that's like Mural was like a side project for the game that they were building. So I do think, that allows like non-design people for sure to communicate ideas, and you have lots of icons and sticky notes. You can take a pen and draw on it. And even if you're not a visual person, usually I think that anybody can understand an idea immediately with one image, right? So you might not consider yourself creative, but actually you understand visuals, and that really helps.
Yeah, I'll add to that so like I mentioned, we're a big shop using Mural every day, but tools like Mural have been hugely useful for us to like at the executive level, or just at the product design level. We can hop in really quickly, and it's like these very like visual, familiar, tactile concepts that we can just all get in, and it's not this need for an executive to like really like go read some design books so we can speak our language. It's as if we're just standing around the whiteboard, which is super helpful. I don't know how we would do it as fluidly without tools like Mural.
Balsamic. Andrew, do you have anything to throw in there too?
I have utmost respect for all of these products, and I will also say that Canva's great for any non-designer to use.
There we go. I agree.
But I did want to add that I think that if you're a non-designer and wanting to like communicate with a designer, like you can collaborate on the problem itself. Like this is maybe a bit more philosophical, but I love it when senior stakeholders are working with designers on the problem. Let's like get really like into it. Like, what's the problem? What's the evidence that it's a real problem? Do we agree on that evidence? What does a good fix look like? Like collaborate with designers on that, and then just let them go and do their thing. And if you've really given your philosophies there as a non-designer or executive to a designer at that level, like 80% of the time, you'll be on the same page, like with what comes back from the designer, in my opinion. So there's my philosophical answer.
Yeah, I just feel constantly. Sorry, Leon, go ahead.
I was just gonna say +1 to what Andrew said, definitely.
Super. Yeah, and I think that really is a constant struggle for operations and marketing to often communicate what the company needs so that the designers are properly prepared to be able to do their job. So just to tell you guys, I'm gonna keep trying, and I'm gonna use all your tools, to say the least. Laïla, Andrew, Leon, and Stu, it has been an enthralling 40 minutes. We thank you guys so much for joining us here on Running Remote Online here in August. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up next, she is often a keynote speaker. She is the CEO of Forshay, talking about reimagining the future of work. She is Sally Thornton. She'll be here in a moment. Thanks again to this crew, and we will see you momentarily.